Hello, and welcome to the Healthy is Happy podcast, the show that helps you get back to the basics of healthy and happy living. We're your hosts. I'm Nellie Ward.
And I'm Jennifer Maha. This podcast is the passion project of two friends who believe that healthy living is happy living. Always look for the good in others, never stop believing in the power of positivity, and think a little hard work goes a long way. To us, healthy living is simply a commitment to making daily choices that keep us on a healthy trajectory, both physically and mentally. We believe it's a lifelong journey, not a destination, and we like to be your co-host along this journey. Buckle up and stay hydrated. It's going to be an epic adventure. All right, guys, welcome to the first ever episode of the Healthy is Happy podcast. Today, we're going to take you into what the podcast is, where it originated from, the idea of it, and kind of what to expect from us. So,
and who we are.
Who we are. So, Nellie, give us who you are. Who are you?
How about I give them who you are?
Better idea.
Okay.
Love it already.
This is my best friend and business partner, Jennifer Maha. She is a mom of two awesome kids. She's a wife. She's a teacher. She's a coach. Golly, you're a lot of things. She's an Ironman 4 times over. She's a marathoner. She's a half marathoner.
And I
she's
tell
a communicator.
A lot of bad jokes.
Yeah, she tells terrible jokes. Not quite as bad as mine. She is an expert in lots of things. Being healthy and being happy is probably up there at the top. And she's one of the best people I know.
Well, that makes me sound way cooler than I am. Thank you for that. Now on to Nellie. So Nellie Ward is a lot of those very same things. Nellie is a 3-time Ironman. She's done about 12,000 marathons, but maybe only like 27, but a lot of marathons. She's a very, very fast runner. And anyone who's ever run or raced with her knows that. She is completely dedicated to health and nutrition. She has a nutrition degree and is basically a walking encyclopedia when it comes to what you should eat, when you should eat it, and how you should eat it. She is an expert at training athletes, triathletes, swimmers of all ages. She is very funny, less about in the joke telling, but more about personality, right?
Maybe we should close off each episode with a Nellie joke.
Maybe not.
Okay.
We'll see. And Nellie and I got started on this journey a long time ago when we decided that we both shared the passion for being healthy and happy.
We're going to pause right there. I do need to interrupt her and remind people because you said we're a lot of the same things. I am not a wife and mother. So any single guys listening.
Yeah. Nellie's number is, no, I'm kidding. Nellie is not a wife or a mother, but she is a mom to a dog.
Yeah. My little mutt named Ted. He's awesome.
Named Ted, who's fantastic. And she is an aunt to my children and most of the small children in West Feliciana who hang out with my kids. She is all of their aunts and spoils them rotten.
Yeah.
And in her spare time, Nellie does love to cook. So if anyone's interested
so does Maha.
Eating good, healthy food, Nellie is your go-to on that.
Yeah. Jennifer is referred to as Maha. So when I say Maha, that's Jennifer.
Me. Yeah. So let's get into why are we doing this podcast. So do you want to tell everybody a little bit about the history and the background of this? Of
the podcast or basic? Because the podcast goes way back.
The podcast, that's an old joke.
Maha and I, we kind of instantly became best friends. We met through work. She was an owner of a company that I started interning for and then went on to work for after college. And it was kind of like we instantaneously, you became like the big sister I never had.
True.
Make lots of funny jokes. And we always have talked about starting a podcast. And we were like, okay, one day we're going to start a podcast. So we kind of started a podcast fund. It was almost like once we have the money to start a podcast, we'll start a podcast. So we would Venmo each other. Anytime we had to Venmo each other for lunch or coffee or something, it was, all right, I'm going to Venmo you an extra $1 for our podcast startup. So it was always coffee plus podcast startup.
So if you go back through about 3 years of our Venmo history, it's whatever the relevant issue was plus podcast. And people used to ask us all the time, when were we starting a podcast? And we just laugh because we're like, we're not really starting a podcast.
But here we are.
But here we are, and we didn't Venmo each other for this. So after the show, we have to get on that. So what about the history of Basic? When did that become a thing?
Basic. So Basic started in August of 2020. We officially formed as a business. I would say it started probably in April of 2020, right when COVID hit. We were kind of not forced out of jobs. Our work had to pause. We were in event production, and there were no events. So we got together and kind of started. Neither of us sits still very well. So we had to figure out how to do something. And the first thing we did was when it was safe and, we could go outside, we got kids together at a socially safe distance. We got them fit and we kept them active so that they didn't turn into, video game playing vegetables. And that was kind of where it all started. We kind of made some fun saying T-shirts to keep people positive during that time because it was very hard. And we've just eventually grown. I'll let you add into that.
Yeah. So Nellie and I both worked in the event space, and we put on running events. And during COVID, we couldn't do that. And we both kind of panicked a little and thought, A, like, what do we do with our time? Because we can't go to work. And B, how long is this going to last? And what else should we do? And I know both of us really enjoyed the jobs that we had, but we both knew that there was something else we wanted to do with our lives. Mine was because my old job was taking up a tremendous amount of my time outside of like the 8 to 5 that you typically work. I was gone a lot of weekends out of the year. And my kids were growing up, and I decided I wanted to be around more and be able to attend their sporting events and just be more present mentally and physically in their lives. And I knew that I needed a change. And I think Nellie realized that she wanted her weekends back too, because being young and single, wink, wink, she needed
Any
to be
single
able to
guy listening out there, just message me.
go out and have a social life. And so, you know, in that time where we were trying to figure out what to do during that long COVID pause, my initial concept was just to pivot the current company that I was a co-owner of and include more of health, wellness, that aspect of it, and the nutrition side of it, and some of the mental health side of it. And so Nellie and I spent probably a week and a half putting together a presentation on what that would look like. And then when it was time to really present that, we realized that it wasn't necessarily the best fit for our current situation, that the people we were working with, they were really committed to putting on events, and we were really committed to making this new shift. And so we decided to just kind of branch out and move in a different direction. And that's where we are now, right?
Yeah.
We had a very loose roadmap, and over time it's gotten a little tighter, maybe not straighter, but a little tighter.
Not straighter, a bit tighter. We've kind of found our niche market. You know, we work with athletes. We worked, you know, we kind of got into this. I was coaching Ironman, marathoners, all of that during, you know, I've been doing that for years. And so we were kind of like, okay, well, we're just going to jump in and kind of focus on that, incorporate kids. We've kind of found more that our niche market is kind of falling under the nutrition side of things and the youth side of things. So we're still working with youth athletes. We're still, you know, we have the personalities to work with them to keep them motivated, you know, to be kind of their cheerleader, because that's what kids really need. And then from the nutrition standpoint, that's kind of become our market for adults. We do have athletes, and we, you know, we have some great athletes that are training for really big things, and they're awesome. But nutrition has kind of been our market that we've fallen into on that side of the business, which has been great. And we have some cool things in the works for kids in sports.
Yeah, down the road, some technological solutions that we're working towards. And so part of what we do, I think, at Basic, and we do well, is we realize that in conversations that we had internally, Nellie and I have knowledge, both collective knowledge, like that is the same, that kind of stacks up on top of each other, but we also have unique knowledge from our very unique and slightly different backgrounds and histories of like the sports that we played, eating and health issues that we've had growing up, allergies that we have. And so,
well, in the phases we are in life.
Yeah,
you know?
that we have a wealth of knowledge that is not, the general public doesn't necessarily have that knowledge. And so we thought it would be a good way to officially start a podcast and share that knowledge with people, and hopefully give them little snippets of information, inspiration, and aspiration as we move through this.
Yeah.
So what does back to the basics mean? So that's something that our company is kind of focused on, and this podcast is kind of focused on, and it's something that we explain to people all the time, because people ask, where did the name Basic come from? Why do you call your company Basic? Because it's a very basic name. And what does it mean? So, Nellie, do you want to tell everybody about what that concept of that is?
Back to the basics, you know, we're basic. So our company is Basic. We've kind of fallen under we have almost 3 separate names. We have Basic Fitness, Basic Nutrition, and Basic Eats. And it all is around Basic, is encouraging, inspiring, healthy, and active lives. And we got the name Basic because we want to bring everything back to the basics. There have been things that have been everything's been overcomplicated, nutrition-wise, fitness-wise. There's just everything you can add 200 layers to it, you know, and then that's when false information starts to arise. And that's when all of these diets and these exercise trends and all of these types of things that people are told start to take precedent over what is just the basics of being a healthy and happy person. So back to the basics is where that started. We are bringing people back to the basics of fitness, of nutrition, of health, and of happiness.
Yeah. And just diluting some of the layers that have been built on of complications, which in hindsight are kind of barriers to entry for a lot of people, right? And so this podcast is, we've written some loose notes about things we want to cover like over time. And it's just really everything that involves living healthy and happy lives and the road to get there. And the truth is we don't think that the road ends, right? It is truly a journey that you're always on, and hopefully you're bringing other people along with you. And it's a simple journey, right? It's making smart decisions each and every day, holding yourself a little bit more accountable than you did yesterday, and being okay with the times that you mess up or don't meet your own expectations of yourself.
Yeah. I would say that this podcast is for everybody, whether you're a mom, you're a dad, you're a college student, you're a single in your 30s and your 40s. If anybody that is just looking to be happier and be better, this podcast is for you.
Yeah. And so the format, right? Those of you who may be tuning in for the first time and may want to continue to tune in, how are we going to do this? So I think our goal is to release 1, maybe 2 podcasts a month as we get going and see how this goes. Sometimes it's going to be an interview format where I'm interviewing Nellie or she's interviewing me. Sometimes it'll be like this where we just sit and have a conversation. Other
Sometimes
times
we'll have guest speakers.
Yeah, we'll bring on subject matter experts or people that we'd like to interview. One of the ones we kind of have planned is we have some friends who were generous and courteous enough and had enough confidence in us to let us train their high school athlete daughter who just signed to go to college yesterday.
Yeah,
and their journey and their story about, taking their daughter from where she was and what her goals were and helping her become a collegiate athlete, just from the parent involvement planning, like all the boxes they had to check. They were telling us about it, and we thought, wow, that's a great story. A, you guys should write a book because there are a lot of people who would need that knowledge. But B, we'd love to have you on our podcast because that's just a really empowering and interesting story. And so we intend to at some point have some guests on here that can shake things up, make it interesting.
Yeah, we plan to we're going to provide serious information, but we're going to have fun doing it. We can't take ourselves too seriously, so this podcast can't be too serious.
There'll be lots of good information, useful information, and shenanigans along the way.
Yeah, maybe a TED appearance.
Maybe a TED appearance. Sometimes we may actually do the podcast in costumes, so get prepared for that.
Penguin costume.
So I think we're close to wrapping up our intro because we're just giving you a little bit about what we want to talk about, so you have a roadmap for where we're going. But one of the formats we're going to try to abide to is something that Nellie and I started a couple weeks ago. Is at the end of every week, because when you're an entrepreneur and really anything in life, like life gets busy. You start out to do things on Monday, and by Friday, everything is kind of gone a little bit askew, right? Life happens. So at the end of every week, we try to ask each other and be accountable to each other. Like, what was your biggest high of the week and your biggest happy of the week, right? So high meaning your biggest success, and it doesn't have to be something really big, but like something you were really proud of. And maybe folding all of your laundry was what your most accomplished moment was, and that's completely fine. And what was the one thing that made you really, really happy? Because we think it's really important not to look at life as like success or failure or good or bad, but like sometimes you did something really amazing. Sometimes it's really small, but it made you feel really good about yourself.
Yeah, and sometimes it's the smallest things of the week that actually make you overly happy, So we do share those, and we encourage you to, while you're listening to this and, to at the end of each week, to also share your high and happy, whether it's with your spouse, your friend, your dog, anybody. Just share your high and happy for the week. It's been a good practice.
It's a good way to wrap up a week. So Nellie, what was your high and happy of the week?
My
Put you on the spot.
My high for the week, I would say, was our company recently got into a pretty cool program through Nexus Louisiana, and we got assigned a mentor. That mentor is phenomenal.
His name is Tony. Great. Shout out to Tony.
Tony. He's awesome, and he just in our first, kind of mentor session, he said exactly what I think I definitely needed to hear. I think we both needed to hear it.
True.
So that was my high. Kind of walked out of reaffirmed things that I was thinking, and he kind of verbalized it. My happy for the week. Oh man. Oh, I did just get a really beautiful plant at the Audubon Market yesterday that I planted and put on my front porch, and I think it's beautiful.
Well,
I'm very happy about that.
What kind of plant? A bougainvillea.
No, I didn't get a bougainvillea. I got a oh man, don't do this. I have a horticulture minor. I will get back to y'all next week on what the name of that plant is.
Just say bougainvillea. Okay, so I'll go. I think my high of the week was...
Jennifer, what are your highs and happies?
Thank you, Nellie. I thought you never asked. My high, I think, was yesterday when we watched Sarah sign her commitment papers to college.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah, but you could use that for next week.
Okay.
That was a great high because it was not only
Sorry, Tony, but that was really big.
That was a goal for Sarah, but it was also a goal for us. And I think, working with any athletes is a great honor and a wonderful experience. But because I've known Sarah for a very long time, because her, younger brother and my oldest son have been best friends since pre-K. So I've known them for probably 8 years now. And so to watch the growth that Sarah's done and be able to be a small part in it, and then to be able to witness sort of like the denouement, right, of that moment, like the highest part of her story, was exciting and thrilling, and it made us feel good to be a part of it. And I would say my happy of the week, let's see, happy of the week. I think this is my happy of the week.
Yeah.
This is so from Venmo jokes to actuality. I think this is it.
Yeah.
I think this is our happy of the week.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to share their happies of the week, use hashtag high hopes, no expectations on social media. That's our tagline.
Yeah. So let's take you through that for a quick second.
Real quick before we end.
Our high hopes and no expectations. So this is something that Nellie and I, it's like a kind of a motto we live by, and we remind each other very, very frequently about that. We were on a trip to New York, right? For my
it was her best friend's birthday that I
40th birthday.
crashed.
So Nellie's like, I'm crashing this trip to New York with you. And I was like, that's great, because traveling alone is awkward and weird. And we were going out for the evening. And so I don't know where the conversation was going, but I was like, here's our motto for the night. We're going to have high hopes of having lots of fun, but no expectations. So if it's a total bust, we're not upset. We have no pre-planned expectations of what's going to happen at this party. We're just going to give it all we got, and just see where the chips fall. And
then we immediately posed and did our Nelly Nacho signature, like back-to-back pose, and took a mirror selfie.
Yeah. And then from that moment on, like, that's kind of our motto for a lot of things, is like, because we realize that most of the time when you're disappointed in yourself or an event or someone else, it's because your expectations were too high. So we just decided high hopes for everything, no expectations, or sometimes just low expectations.
Yeah,
sometimes you have to have a few expectations. But
like if you go to the grocery store and you're going for grapes, like you got to expect that you might be able to leave with some grapes.
Yeah, but be open-minded enough that you may need to switch to bananas.
Yeah. Pivot.
All right.
Friends.
All right. So thanks for joining us for our first episode of the Healthy is Happy podcast, and stay tuned for more exciting episodes. High five.
Oh. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Healthy is Happy podcast. You can follow us on Facebook at Basic Living BR, Instagram for all things healthy and happy living at Basic Living BR, and for more nutrition focused content, follow us on Instagram at _basic_eats.